Hey guys, it is Monday, August 21st. I had to start this video over because I said it was May 21st, but it is August, and we are on what I like to think of day 10 as far as staying at home work. This time next Monday, hopefully, we'll be on an AB schedule, and then those of you who had chosen to do virtual, you will be part of virtual live. So the lessons are going to look a little different when you upload them or when you open them, because if you open them at a certain time of day, you'll be part of the real class, which is what I hope some of us try. It's going to be new for me, so be patient with me. But that's the goal, so that none of this will be pre-recorded and it will seem more like a real and true class environment. So that being said, first things first, simple solutions. You are on lesson number 9 because we did not do a simple solutions on test day. And so make sure that you read the questions thoroughly so that you know that you're getting the right answers. So upload to Google Classroom. I'll give feedback where needed, and we will go from there. Now, whole new end in mind this week, which I'm kind of glad. I was kind of ready to get beyond character traits and drawing conclusions. So to this week, the next week and a half, we're going to be looking at identifying theme. Yay! Theme is one of those things that you will do in middle school, you will do in high school. Those of you who choose the college pathway, you will also see it in college English courses. Every college student is required to take, I think it's 2 separate English courses, and you can bet that there's a literature piece in there that will require you to find theme, and it will just be getting more in-depth every year. So theme is really important to kind of grasp and to be able to have evidence to back up that theme. So today's theme, and I'd like you to write this in your notebook just like we did last time, so that when you're working on questions independently at home, you've got it there if you need it. Most of y'all be like, well, I didn't even look at that, Miss Cam. That's okay. It makes me feel good knowing it's there. Okay? It says, I will be able to identify the theme by looking for repeated ideas in the story. So I'm going to hold that there a moment so you can write it in your journal. You can always pause me while you go find a journal. All right, we're going to move on. So that's what we're going to be focused on this week. Even though our reading is super interesting, it's a great narrative story told from the first person point of view. It's also all about the skills. So we are learning skills that go along with the book. All right, so along with a new end in mind comes a new batch of vocabulary words. These words are already uploaded onto Quizlet. They're there for you, and you will be expected to go on to those. And just like the last 2 weeks, you're going to be required to do at least 10 minutes a day on those. So here we go. We have receded. Receded means it has retreated. So I like to think about floodwaters, and we have certain areas of our county that when we have a flood, we get water that covers the roads. And so when that water starts to go down, we like to say, well, the water receded off the road. It's receded. ED is past tense, so it's gone away. And they're saying that it has retreated. So the water has retreated off of the roadway. We have crude, means unrefined. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can look at crude. Crude can be where you made a birdhouse at Vacation Bible School and when you were in second grade, and it's kind of like a hot mess, okay? It's not been sanded, that when you nailed it together, it's kind of nailed off kilter or crooked. It's crudely made, okay? Crude also can be where you're at the dinner table and you let out a big belch at the table. It's unrefined, which means that it is without class. For this week's reading, though, we're looking at the first definition of that, and that is the usage that you'll see where something has been made, but it doesn't have that polished or finished look. It's rough, and so that's the definition we're going to be thinking of. We have gorge, and that is to eat greedily. Now, if you come from a large family, sometimes, I'm going to say sometimes because this is not always, sometimes when you have an influx of a large amount of food, let's say that you've had a big pizza party at your house, or it was pizza day. I'm just going to use my own family memory here. We had an uncle through love. He wasn't truly our uncle, but he was someone that we spent a tremendous amount of time with. And he, every first of the month, when he got his retirement check, he retired from General Motors, and he practically lived with us, but every time, first of the month, when he got his retirement check, he would order Oasis pizza, and he wouldn't just order 2. I mean, we were a family of 5 at that time, so, 2 should have some left over. He would order like 5 or 6 pizzas, and I had a couple of brothers who thought it would be fun sometimes to have a pizza eating contest, and they would eat greedily and they would gorge on this pizza. So gorge is to eat greedily. They would try to see how much of that they could eat at any given time. So it's where you're not really thinking about saving any for later or saving any for anyone else too, but the way that we're going to be using it in the text this week is where you're just eating as fast as you can to get as much in as you can. We have initial, which is first. Gesturing is signaling, and you guys can't see it, but I am continually talking with my hands and doing stuff below the camera. I have a really big issue with gesturing. And so we use signals all the time. If you're in class and I'm wanting you to be quiet, I'll do this. And you guys know this is a signal for we need to be quiet. If we're out on the playground, I might go, and you know that means let's line up and come in. Sometimes if you're in a larger area and there are police directing traffic, they'll use signals, like this way, stop, go. And so there's signaling is part of our everyday life. So gesturing and signaling. Nicked is cut slightly. In a few years, all of you men will start shaving that face. And until you learn how to do the pressure on that razor, you may press down a little too hard along your jawline and get little nicks that bleed on your face. Ladies, you'll experience the same things when you start shaving those legs. If you, this year or next year, figuring out how hard to press, and it's not uncommon to get that nick, okay, which is cut slightly. Precious is treasured, and we have smeared, which means spread. So I like to think about how many times I smeared peanut butter on sandwiches for my older kids to take in their lunches. That was before, the big peanut allergy was a big issue in schools. You could pack whatever, and my boys loved peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And just be honest, they were cheap and they were good. And so I packed hundreds of those in their school time. So smeared is to spread, and we're going to be looking at that word in context as well. So we're going to move to the front, and we want to keep in mind what that end in mind is, which is I will be able to identify the theme by looking for repeated ideas in the story. And we're off. This will probably be the last video I do today, so tomorrow I will at least have different clothes on, those of you who are keeping count. You may not care, but it's kind of bothering me, so I'll probably get off of here and start thinking about science and get those science lessons kind of underway. All right, now I'm going to kind of move you a little bit, because when we start with a new unit of study or a new week of study, this one's pretty big, guys. May have to, don't know if I can get it all. So we'll do the best we can with it. So I want to read this, and I want us to think about this passage and what is the repeated ideas that help us to identify the theme. Okay, so here we go. Kara was the new girl at school, and most of the students made no effort to welcome her, but Tanya did. Tanya helped Kara find her classes when she looked lost and told her that they could sit together at lunch. Tanya and Kara got to know each other pretty well during the next few weeks as they talked about their shared interests during lunch. Kara was good in math, so she helped Tanya with her math homework. And Tanya returned the favor by helping Kara with her English homework. So when I look at this passage, what jumps out to me is that there is a friendship being bonded here. And when we're looking at themes, friendship is a really common theme in fiction writing. And it can be friendships and acquaintanceships that are tested by difficult situation. At the beginning of this, Tanya and Kara would be considered acquaintances. That is where you know someone, but you don't really know them yet, And so they're acquaintances. And the difficultness that is being discussed here is that we've got a new young lady. And one of the girls decides that she would help her out. So when I think about that, I want to think about the repeated idea of Tanya helping Kara. So Tanya helped Kara find her class. Okay. She told her that they could sit together. And let's see, Kara helped Tanya with her math. So when I'm looking here, I can see the repeated idea that Tanya is helping her, that she is doing things that a friend would do. And the reciprocal agreement or the reciprocalness that's going on here with Kara is that Kara then in turns helps Tanya. And at the bottom that you can't see, but you might remember from me reading, is that Kara then helps Tanya with her English homework. So Tanya is going to return the favor. So we have these repeated ideas here of friendship. And then what is the evidence that kind of solidifies that together? So I want you to think a few moments about what are some possible themes that you can think of for Hatchet so far. some repeated ideas. And we're going to drive over here. We're going to make our story arc go away. And we want to think about that for just a minute, okay? Let's think about some themes, okay? So let's think about survival. Let's think about maturity. Is he having to show maturity in the way that he's handling these very difficult situations? I think so. We could do coming of age. Okay, and when we think about coming of age, what that really means is that you're learning life lessons, that the character is maturing and learning lessons as they go along. So we would say that he is learning lessons. He's learning everything thus far as learning how to work the radio. He learned how to fly the plane. And each of those things are helping him to mature at a pretty fast rate. The last one is perseverance. And when I think about this, he has learned all of these things. And I think that all of these things apply. And that is the beauty about themes in fiction. You can have multiple themes sometimes. But this book, to me, has a very consistent theme that week after week after week, I think we can kind of plug in. And that theme is going to be perseverance. So I'm going to make all of these go away. And we're going to focus on just this one theme. Perseverance. Okay? And I'm going to make sure I spell that right because I'm a horrible speller. S-E-V-E-R-A. Yes. All right. I'm a horrible speller. Word check or spell check has absolutely been awful for me. So what I want you to do is we want to put a definition of what perseverance is. So if you've got your journal out or your reading notebook, you should. We want to write what a definition is here. Okay, so perseverance is not giving up. Oh, I probably need to print for you guys. Okay, not giving up or persisting. And I'll be honest, I won't use this one very often when I'm talking about perseverance. I will almost always use not giving up. Not giving up when things get hard or things get difficult, just pushing through the adversity. That is perseverance to me. That just keeping on no matter what the difficulty. Now, let's take our book and open it up to page, gotta find where I am. Page 50. I want to make sure I'm right. Yep, here we go. They might not find him for a long time. And the next thought was theirs will, that they might never find him. Gotta make that go where it needs to go. But that was panic, and he fought it down and tried to stay positive. They searched hard when a plane went down. They used many men and planes, and they would go to the side. They would know he was off from the flight path. He had talked to the man on the radio. They would somehow know. It would be all right. They would soon find him, but not tomorrow, but soon, soon, soon. They would find him soon. Gradually, like sloshing oil, his thoughts settled back and the panic was gone. Say they didn't come for 2 days. No, say they didn't come for 3 days. Even push that to 4 days. He could live with that. He would have to live with that. He didn't want to think of them taking longer, but say 4 days? Well, he had to do something. He couldn't just sit at the bottom of this tree and stare down at the lake for 4 days and nights. He was in deep woods and didn't have any matches, and he couldn't make a fire. There were large things in the woods. There were wolves, and he thought, and bears, other things. In the dark, he would be in the open here, just sitting at the bottom of the tree. Well, he looked around suddenly, and he felt the hair on the back of his neck go up. Things might be looking at him right now, waiting for dark so they could move in and take him. He fingered the hatchet at his belt. It was the only weapon he had, but it was something. He had to have some kind of shelter. No, make that more. He had to have some kind of shelter, and he had to have something to eat. Well, he pulled himself to his feet and jerked the back of his shirt down before the mosquitoes could get at it, and he had to do something to help himself. I have to get motivated, he thought. Remembering purpose, right now, I'm all I've got. I have to do something. Chapter 6. I'm going to have a seat. Two years before, he and Terry had been fooling around down near the park, where the city seemed to end for a time and the trees grew thick and came down to the small river that went through the park. It was thick there and seemed kind of wild. And they had been joking and making things up, and they pretended that they were lost in the woods and talked in the afternoon about what they would do. Of course, they figured they'd have all sorts of goodies, like a gun and a knife and fishing gear and matches, so they could hunt and fish and have a fire. I wish you were here, Terry, he thought, with a gun and a knife and some matches. In the park that time, they had decided the best shelter was a lean-to, and Brian set out now to make one up. Maybe cover it with grass or leaves or sticks, he thought, and he started to go down to the lake again, where there were some willows and he could cut down for branches. But it struck him that he ought to find a good place for the lean-to, and so he decided to look around first. He wanted to stay near the lake because he thought the plane, even deep in the water, might show up to somebody flying over, and he didn't want to diminish any chances he might have of being found. Well, his eyes fell upon the stone ridge to his left, and he thought at first he should build a shelter against the stone. But before that, he decided to check out the far side of the ridge, and that was where he got lucky. Well, using the sun and the fact that it rose in the east and set in the west, he decided that the far side was the northern side of the ridge. At one time in the far past, it had been scooped by something, probably a glacier, and this scooping had left a kind of sideways bowl back and under a ledge. Well, it wasn't very deep, not a cave, but it was smooth and made a perfect roof, and he could almost stand in under the ledge. He had to hold his head slightly tipped forward at the front to keep it from hitting the top. Some of the rock that had been scooped out had also been pulverized by the glacial action, turning into sand, and now made a small sand beach that went down to the edge of the water in front and to the right of the overhang. If my phone rings and we get cut off, guys, that'll be the end of the lesson today, and we'll pick up wherever we stop tomorrow. Well, it was his first good luck. No, he thought he had good luck in the landing, but this was good luck as well, luck he needed. All he had to do was wall off part of the bowl and leave an opening as a doorway, and he would have a perfect shelter, much stronger than a lean-to, and dry because the overhang made a watertight roof. Well, he crawled back in under the ledge and sat. The sand was cool here in the shade, and the coolness felt wonderful to his face, which was starting to blister and get especially painful on his forehead, with the blisters on top at the swelling. He was also still weak. Just the walk around the back of the ridge and the slight climb over the top had left his legs rubbery. It felt good to sit for a bit under the shade of the overhang in the cool sand. And now, he thought, if I just had something to eat, anything. And when he had rested a bit, he went back down to the lake and drank a couple of swallows of water. He wasn't all that thirsty, but he thought the water might help to take the edge off his hunger. It didn't. Somehow the cold lake water actually made it worse. It sharpened it. He thought of dragging in wood to make a wall on part of the overhang and picked up one piece to pull up. But his arms were too weak, and he knew that it wasn't just the crash and injury to his body and head. It was also that he was weak from hunger. He would have to find something to eat before he did anything else. He would have to have something to eat. But what? Brian leaned against the rock and stared out at the lake. What in all of this was there to eat? He was so used to having food just be there, just always being there when he was hungry. He went to the ice box, we call that the refrigerator, or to the store, or sat down to a meal his mother cooked. So if I look at the pages that I read, there's just reoccurring ideas about perseverance here. The first thing being that where he tells himself there's no guarantee that he's going to be rescued anytime soon. That shows that he's going to keep pushing through, that he's not going to give up just because it may take a while. He doesn't just sit at that tree and go, ooh. You know, he's like, well, I can't just sit here. What am I going to do? I got to have a shelter. I got to have food. So that's showing that perseverance there. Now, then he talks about where he and his friend had played that game, and they talked about the lean-to in that instances. And so he's trying to think of things that will keep him alive. He knows he needs shelter, and then he knows he needs food to kind of stave off the weakness that's hitting him. He's very fatigued. He's very tired. And when you don't eat, your body uses food as energy. So at this point, he's becoming pretty depleted of nutrients, and so he's needing some food for energy. This is a great place for us to stop today. So I'll see you tomorrow with a different set of clothes on. Bye.